wabarakatuh. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. You'll have to pardon my Urdu if it's bad. I won't be speaking Urdu anyway, but if the odd word does come in, you'll have to excuse the accent. I've been asked to do this story pointing exercise, and initially it was just sort of what can we pick? I think story pointing is one of those pivotal things that come up in Scrum quite a lot. So I'm going to be talking from a traditional Scrum perspective. So I know there's different ways of doing things in terms of story pointing, and I know there's a safe method which talks about normalizing, but we will just be keeping it quite basic in this session, if that's okay. So thank you very much, guys. Okay, so the plan for today, this evening, I guess we've got about 55 minutes and counting, is we're going to do a quick intro. So I'm going to introduce myself, and then I'm going to go through traditional sort of story points, explaining it. Sure, a lot of you are probably familiar with the concept, so I won't teach you how to suck eggs. Then there's a small group exercise that we'll be looking at. And then within that group exercise, we'll be asking Zishan and Maruk to ideally split you guys up, depending on how many people we've got, and then we'll break that into teams. And then we're going to go into something around coaching styles. So I wanted to give you guys something back at the end of the session to take away as almost like a token of this is what I've got from the session. And then we've got some questions, and Zishan and Maruk have kindly put a quiz together. So keep listening, guys. All the content is not on the slide. So this is where your listening skills really come in. So without further ado, I'm going to make a start. Cool. So just a little bit about me. So I actually have been doing this for around about 10 years. And initially my journey started as I suppose as most of us do within this field, is as a Scrum Master. And actually I walked into a role and I had no idea what it was, and I just kind of went with it. Previously I'd worked in account management roles and project manager roles. I've been a programmer, and I've done recruitment as well. So I think maybe when I went for my interview, the employer probably thought, yeah, some of those little facets we could use and maybe make me into a Scrum Master. So kind of just took it in my stride and went along with it. As I was learning and reading and researching, there wasn't that much Scrum in the UK. About 10, 11 years ago, it was very, very new. The idea of a Scrum Master, a lot of my family didn't even know it was even a job role. And I just used to tell people I'm a project manager because they just couldn't relate with it. So I continued on, and as I read more and more, I actually realized it's a very, very soft people role. So you always have to imagine it's human first, and then you're a coach second. So people always come first, then processes. And Agile as a manifesto actually teaches us that as well. So put the people first, the processes will start falling into place. Remember, with Agile, it's always a mindset and a culture of different ways of working. So this was actually quite a pivotal point for me, to be fair. And as and more that came to light, I thought, you know what, I want to go on and excel in this. So funnily enough, I actually did my qualification after my first Scrum Master role. And it was great because I could actually take something to the training rather than just sitting there and thinking, okay, yeah, I've got all these great concepts and ways of working, but I've never ever implemented it. So actually the implementation background was great. So I'd done it before, went and got the qualification, and actually it's worked wonders for me. So I've got myself a nice shiny CSM probably about 8 years after doing it. And then I've just recently done a refresher. And then on the plus of that, I got myself an extra shiny SPC. So that's your scaled practitioner consultant role. I'm currently doing that at the moment for my employer, but we are using elements of the CSM part. So using a lot of Scrum, but some of my clients need the SPC side. One thing to always to take away from this kind of stuff is there's always learning, and you've never ever stopped growing. So I always take that as, I think, as a takeaway, because you can speak to people day in and day out and you can learn things, but actually what do you take away from that? So I think you never ever stop growing as a Scrum Master, a coach, a tester, a product owner, a BA, whatever your field may be. I feel that you can always grow. And that mantra I really, really do stick by. So this is a little bit about me. And I think where I'm trying to come from is, I think it all starts from humble beginnings. And then as you learn things from other people, you can actually apply that in your day-to-day role. So that's my little faff and over, my little waffle over. I'm going to jump into actually what you guys have dialed in for at an name hour. So here we go. So what is a story point, I suppose, is one of the things that we want to look at. So story point is actually a unit a measure of expressing the estimate of an overall piece of work that you're going to be looking at, usually referred to as a PBI, which is a product backlog item, and any other piece of work that may sort of fall into that. Usually when you're estimating, you assign things with story point values. So at the top, I have put something called a Fibonacci scale, and we will talk more about that in the next slide. Realistically, when you're actually looking at a piece of work, sometimes it can be difficult, almost problematic to think, how am I going to break this work up? What is it that we're going to do to estimate it? So instead of assigning a linear sort of rule where it's the 1, 2, 3, 4, so on and so forth, we introduce something that allows some fat in the number. So you could have assigned anything, and I've put some practices there where you can have 1, 200, 300. As long as the increase is the same, it doesn't really matter what that ratio actually is. The Fibonacci scale is just something that's widely used, and it's used within Agile. So I thought we're going to stick with that, and they're the numbers that we're going to stick with. I know you guys will have questions around seeing maybe 20 and 21, and I know there's arbitrary sort of numbers behind that, and I know there's arguments within the Agile community around 20 and 21 and it not quite jumping, but I'm going to stick with 21 for this seminar, if that's okay. So what is it actually made up of? And story points is quite straightforward if you think about it. I think as human beings, we have the sort of mindset to complicate things, and it's actually something that you would use in order to look at the effort of something. Now, this could include the amount of work that needs to be done, the complexity of the work, and the risk and uncertainty in doing that piece of work. So to give you an example, when I first did a planning poker session, is where sometimes these story point activities do take place, we looked at a piece of work and people throwing numbers up in the air, and there wasn't anything that was coherently bringing them together. So these three little pieces, nuggets of information, actually help individuals find that. So this is why we use this, and I guess one of the reasons behind it is, and if you guys do have an opportunity to look up on this, I'll send Zishan a few things and a few articles around Mike Cohn, who really pushes for using story points. I know there's a lot of arguments around using hours and why we should use hours over story points and some of the things around it, but you should never ever try to mix the two things together, and I'll go into that in a moment when we get into the next slide. But ideally you want to try and move away from that, and translating points to hours, it's not really the best benefit, and you want to try and give a speed of relativity, and this gives you that. Things to consider on all the factors. It does seem like a problematic task, actually, when you think about it. How am I going to combine all these things? How are all these people going to come together? But actually, it is possible, because it's an effort that is a unifying factor, and that's the thing that we need to look at. And unfortunately, hours don't give you that. They don't give you that unifying factor. So story points allow for that unified work to come together. Okay. So why do we use it? Why is it that we are using this scale, or this Fibonacci scale that you guys keep hearing about? Well, actually, you want to use a scale where the numbers aren't too close to one another, like I previously mentioned. And I know I've put 1, 2, 3, 4 here, which is kind of a bit of an oxymoron, but I just want to actually bring it to light. Actually, being able to distinguish that number from the next to the next to the next is what you want to be trying to do. Actually, the Fibonacci scale allows us to basically do that. And I suppose some of the reasons behind why we're using it, it's composed of integers. So for estimating the time it takes to complete a task, you want to scale that. It's made of integers. The goal of estimating tasks in Agile is a high level estimate. So there's no need for that granularity of 2.4 or 3.2. Integers or whole numbers, as they're referred to, are all that is needed, I guess, in this situation. And given the option of half step, quarter steps, and so on, it actually only slows the team down. So we want to try and look at whole numbers. The other part is it's exceptional. So when estimating time, the shorter the time span, the more certainty. Longer tasks are more complex, and time estimates are less precise. So it grows at increasing rate, it scales, it provides details for small tasks, and it forces uncertainty for large tasks. Furthermore to this, because the scale and the sequence is lagging in that sequence, it provides a detail for small tasks, i.e. the 1, 2, and the 3, but then provides the less detail for medium tasks, which is your numbers 5 and 8. And then you go on for your larger tasks, which are 13 and 21 in this case. This actually forces your team to have more detail when estimating small tasks. Is it a 1? Is it a 2? Is it a 1? Is it 2? And then they're less faced with the large tasks. So they don't need to think about, is it a 13 or a 21? It actually helps build estimates with increasing uncertainty as time estimates get longer. So it creates a more efficient and effective estimate. So point 3, it forces you to choose more or less. So I suppose where I'm trying to come from on that is, in addition to building like this uncertainty for increased time spans, and the Fibonacci sequence also forces your team to make a choice. So Scrum is all about team alliances, team building, cooperation, coming together. So when you're faced with large tasks, where are you going? Is it an 8 or 13 or 21? There is no in between, and that's the thing that we need to look at. There's no in between that you can rely on. So this helps your team to group and differentiate that size of tasks. So rather than having that 9, 10, 11, 12, all of those numbers in between, you only got 3 numbers to pick from. So you go, right, I think it's going to come out somewhere in between here and here. And I suppose that's where I was coming from, that linear part, which moves on to point 4. Because of the non-linear nature of this scale, it reduces that over-analysis, like I mentioned before. 4 out of the 6 numbers used are prime numbers, reducing your ability to evenly break down or even compare tasks. Large tasks are not squarely related to one another, so this one's twice as long as this one, and so on and so forth. And the numbers don't give that impression that if you had maybe multiple people working on it, the task may be twice as fast. This helps reduce that over-analysis and analysis paralysis that you guys probably hear. And the last one, which I think is quite quirky, it sounds cool actually. You come together, you do this like wicked exercise, you think about, oh, how am I going to do this? What is the best way to do it? And actually it makes you really, really think about it. So that's why I really do enjoy that part. It's a nice team bonding exercise and everyone gets to do it. Just want to flip back to my, hang on one sec. Sorry. Yes. So just really gets you to think about it a little bit more. Right. So how does it help us? Why are we using this? Why is it helping us? Well, actually, what it's doing is it's putting a size item to your backlog item. It's something that clients want to see. Our clients have this unnerving sort of presence, especially in the UK, to this trust factor really needs to be bought in. And how do we give that trust? Is to give them something tangible, and we give that tangibility with these numbers. And actually it allows them to think, actually, they've committed to this and they're going to complete it. So it's a great estimation tool that we can give our POs like a better insight into the level of effort for each work item. It gives you guys that sort of onus of, we're taking that away from you. It gives them guys that, yeah, with a PO, we can now prioritize this. It's a fantastic sort of metric to be used within, not just within sort of your own Scrum team. You can sort of scale it out, and you can go to even business level if you wanted to use it for even at that epic level. So again, it's something that we can use day in and day out, and it's not something that's just done the once. You can always go back, refine, clean, go back, groom, prioritize. Hello?
Sana, sorry to interrupt you. There are some... Hello?
Hello?
Sana, sorry to interrupt you. There are some... Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Hello?
Yes, you're audible.
Sorry to interrupt you. There are some questions. Do you want to answer now or later towards the end?
Yeah, sorry guys. Yeah, with questions and stuff, I'm going to take them at the end if that's okay, because I know we're recording the call. So, and it gives me an opportunity to look at your questions when you guys are doing the quiz. So if it's okay, I'll come back to you after the quiz, but the questions are being taken down anyway, and you've got some time to do that if that's okay. So yeah, keep dropping them into the group chat, and then I will most definitely come back to you.
Yeah, sure, you can continue. We will
Cool.
ask questions later. Yeah.
All right, super duper. Right. Okay. And then I think we touched upon sort of this points and hours part. So there's always this debate of, oh, should we use points? Should we use hours? And actually what hours is actually doing, it's breaking that down to that level that you don't want to go to. points allow for you to have a good correlation. Your velocity is actually tracked. Those hours become difficult to manage. They become very cumbersome. You don't want to use Scrum to manage people. You want the process to manage itself, and points give you that flexibility. And you don't need to constantly keep re-estimating when you've got your story points. So once you've got those points, you've got them. Whereas with hours, a senior developer could come in and go, well, I think it's only going to take me 2 hours. And a junior developer would be like, well, I think it's going to take me X amount. Because you did the exercise with the team, it was a team's effort to get that done. So it doesn't matter who picks up that task when you're in that team, that work still gets translated. So hours are a lot more granular and are actually better estimated at a task level. So once you've got your story and you start breaking those tasks down, if you want to then go into hours, and that's absolutely and perfectly acceptable. I have done that in the past. I've worked with Scrum teams that have story pointed the whole story. And then when we've gone down to task level, they wanted to put some hours next to those tasks, which is fine. But we were always, the metric that the company and the client, and I suppose the sort of product owner was looking at was points. It's always been points for me. And hours is something that you can introduce, but I would say always take that with a little bit of pinch of salt, if that's okay. Cool. Okay, right. 1 second. Right, okay guys, so I've got your questions, so I'm going to look at those. There is a group exercise, so Maruk, I don't know how you want to do the split, so I'll give you some...
we will add them in the breakout rooms.
Okay.
So how much time you want to give?
So we said, I believe we said about 10 minutes, and then, yeah, so we'll do 10 minutes, and then if the guys need a little bit longer, we can just do a time check. But actually, let's have a look at what I want you guys to do. So for 10 minutes in your groups, I just want to flip this concept. I mean, it's all well and good that we've got story points and we've got this fantastic tool available to us, but what would happen if you didn't do it? I'd be really keen to see what has happened actually when you haven't done it, but more so focus on if you didn't have story points, what would happen? Just really think about that. So break out into your teams and discuss with your teams your own experiences of working with and without points. And if you didn't do it, what would you use? Would you use, you know, I don't know, numbers? Would you use sort of t-shirt sizes? Would you just use arbitrary figures that have kind of just worked for you? We're really keen to understand that. And then I want you to come back and determine sort of the outcomes you experienced when you had difference of opinion. So I'm sure with the teams that you've got, you may have worked in different companies that have used different methods. So I'd like you guys to discuss that, and then I'd like you to bring that, and then we will regroup back together in about 10 to 12 minutes for you guys to come back and talk about that group exercise, and then we can have a little bit of a chat, and hopefully everyone can come off mute and we'll have a little bit of a chat about it. We'll do 5 minutes of discussing all this kind of stuff, and then we'll move back into the rest of the presentation. This should hopefully take us just past the half-past-hour mark, and then we can obviously move on to the next set of slides and then the questions, which will hopefully we can close off, and then it will close the presentation off. So Maruk, Zishan, do you want to break the guys up, if that's okay?
Perfect. Yeah. So guys, you will be breaking out into rooms. So you will be getting invitation in few seconds. 10 minutes, right?
Yeah, let's give them 10 minutes. Yeah.
Okay,
gives me time to read the questions as well.
Approaches you use for estimation. Right. So I think all of us are back now.
Great.
Let's see.
Okay.
Yeah, all of us are back. So
Perfect.
over to you, Sana.
Great. How many rooms did you break out into?
6.
6. Okay. Should we just go, do you know which was what? So who was in what, or should we just go from room to room?
We can just ask. I mean,
okay guys, open forum really. So
yeah.
Who wants to start? What did you come back with? What is it that you've discovered from one another, and what kind of metrics is it that you have been using? Open forum.
All right, this is Usman Said.
Hey Usman.
Okay. So we are basically using the t-shirt size estimates in our company.
Okay.
And and in our other project that is another team is handling, that is using Fibonacci series with vehicle estimates. For example, we can use cycle, bicycle, car, BMW, sheep,
Right,
airplane,
okay.
something like this.
Yeah, you're using an item to break things up.
Yep,
Okay.
yep.
Okay, and how's that? What's been sort of the partake on that in terms of breaking things up using? Let's put the t-shirt sizing to one side. Interesting to hear your concept around using like a BMW or a bike or a scooter or whatever it is. What kind of discussions do you have when you use those as, I suppose, things to reference a team to? What kind of partake do you get from it?
Okay, so
Usman, you're cutting out.
yes, you can hear me now.
Yeah, carry on, buddy.
Okay. So basically, we normally start with the user story in sprint
उस्मान
planning.
उर्दू में भी आप कर सकते हैं क्वेश्चन
अगर आपको उर्दू में करना आप उर्दू में कर सकते हैं, नो प्रॉब्लम.
ड्यूरिंग स्प्रिंट प्लानिंग हम डिसाइड करते हैं कि हमारे एस्टिमेट्स क्या होंगे. बेसिकली जो हमारी प्रोडक्ट बैकलॉग रिक्वायरमेंट होती है उसमें हम डिवाइड कर लेते हैं हमारी एफर्ट कितनी निकल रही है. तो क्योंकि वो हमने टी शर्ट रखे होते हैं, फॉर एग्जांपल स्मॉल है, मीडियम है, लार्ज है, एक्स्ट्रा लार्ज है, तो टीम जो है वो नॉर्मली बताती है कि यार ये जो स्टोरी है ये हमें लग रही है स्मॉल लग रही है या लार्ज लग रही है, एक्स्ट्रा स्मॉल लग रही है. फिर वो आपस में तमाम जो टीम मेंबर्स होते हैं वो डिस्कस करते हैं कि अगर कोई स्मॉल कहता है या कोई मीडियम कहता है तो मीडियम क्यों कह रहे हैं और स्मॉल क्यों कह रहे हैं. तो जो रेलिवेंट होता है टू द स्केल, अगर मीडियम के करीब लोग जा रहे हैं तो हम उसको मीडियम मार्क कर लेते हैं, और अगर वो स्मॉल के करीब जा रहे हैं तो हम उसको स्मॉल मार्क कर लेते हैं.
That's fine, क्योंकि ये एक्चुअली टास्क के ज़्यादा वक्त ज़ाया करने के लिए हमारे पास टाइम नहीं है ये sort of मीटिंग्स करने के लिए, ठीक है. तो ज़्यादातर बेहतर होता है कि आप पहले से डिसाइड कर लें कि आपको पॉइंट्स करने हैं, आपको टी शर्ट साइजिंग करनी है ना, आपको बाकायदा एक कोई चीज़ यूज़ करनी है, जैसे पुर्जा यूज़ करना है एस्टिमेट करने के लिए. तो हम एक्चुअली आपको इंकरेज करते हैं कि आप पहले से टीम को मैनेज कर लें उसमें. So what we're trying to do is, Usman, I understand what you've been doing, and so you're making like a medium as to हिसाब दे देते हैं कि अगर ये small है और ये medium है, हम थोड़े से मियाना रवि करके कह देते हैं अच्छा ठीक है ये medium है आपके लिए. लेकिन actually यही वजह से इन्हीं वजहों से आपको कॉन्वर्सेशंस की ज़रूरत होती है. तो अगर आपकी एक पर्सन कह रहा है कि स्मॉल है और दूसरा बंदा कह रहा है कि मीडियम है, तो एक्चुअली आपको अंडरस्टैंड करना है कि ये क्यों हो रहा है. तो पॉइंट्स की वैल्यू ये है कि आपके पास ज़्यादा इतने नहीं है, लेकिन आपके पास थोड़े ज़्यादा दरमियाने आप कर सकते हैं. आप कह सकते हैं 1 है, 2 है, 3 है, 5 है. स्मॉल, मीडियम, लार्ज, एक्स्ट्रा मीडियम में बहुत फ़र्क होता है. जो आपके हिसाब में लार्ज होएगा वो मेरे लिए शायद मीडियम होए, लेकिन नंबर्स में कोई फ़र्क नहीं होता है. जो उर्दू में नंबर 1 है वो इंग्लिश में भी नंबर 1 है, और वो चाइनीज़ में भी 1 ही है. तो इसलिए वो हम कहते हैं कि नंबर्स बहुत बेहतरीन होते हैं इसी टास्क के लिए. तो ज़्यादातर इसी वजह से वो कह रहे हैं कि आप चीज़ें नहीं इस्तेमाल करें. स्मॉल, मीडियम, लार्ज यूजुअली होते हैं एपिक्स के लिए. And it works better because it's so large. You have to start breaking it down into the components and the features. So I guess what I'm trying to say, Usman, is it's not wrong what you're doing. It's absolutely fine. I'm very interested to see that you've had that sort of reaction and those kind of concepts have come out from it. And what अगर आपने जैसे small, medium, large के आपने points कभी इस्तेमाल किए हैं या नहीं?
जी points हमने इस्तेमाल किए थे. Yes, we use Fibonacci series. तो
और उन दोनों में से आपको बेहतर कौन सा लगा?
आई गेस के जो है ना टी शर्ट साइजिंग वो ज़्यादा बेहतर लग रही थी मुझे, इन अ सेंस के नंबर्स भी तो अल्टीमेटली रेलिवेंट चीज़ें ही है ना, रेलिवेंट क्या है एस्टिमेट, कौन से करेक्ट एस्टिमेट्स हैं. क्योंकि वो 2 का मतलब होता है, 2 का मतलब मैं कोई और समझूँ, 2 का मतलब कोई दूसरा भी और समझे.
अच्छा उस्मान, मैं आपका मुद्दा पेश करती हूँ. अगर मैंने आपसे कहा आपको ये चीज़ें 2 दफ़ा करनी है, वो 2 ही दफ़ा करनी है ना, ठीक है. अगर मैं आपसे कहूँ कि एक चीज़ स्मॉल है, आपके दिमाग में जो स्मॉल है और मेरे दिमाग में जो स्मॉल है वो सेम नहीं है. तो नंबर तो सेम ही होता है ना सबके लिए. इसी वजह से वो कहते हैं कि स्मॉल, मीडियम, लार्ज इज फाइन, but actually if you want to really get to grips with estimating, you need that number behind it. There's no right and wrong. तो ये भी नहीं कि आप जो चीज़ कर रहे हैं वो गलत है, लेकिन हम बस चाह रहे हैं कि आपकी और बेहतर होए. तो नंबर्स आपको ज़्यादा बेहतर बनाते हैं टीम के ज़रिए. ओके, कूल.
एक्चुअली काफ़ी थॉट्स थी, काफ़ी कुछ मैंने पढ़ा था इसके ऊपर, क्योंकि हर किसी के अपने प्रोज एंड कॉन्स हैं एस्टिमेट्स के.
Of course.
I read read articles from Mike Cohen, उसके बारे में काफी उसने लिखा हुआ था कौन से पॉइंट्स बेटर हैं, कौन से कब यूज करने चाहिए. तो yes, हम डिस्कस करते हैं इसके ऊपर.
Of course, Usman, one size does not fit all, brother. So they all change, don't they, depending on the team and the, I suppose, experience that you've got within the team. So it's your job as a coach, a Scrum Master, or sometimes even as a BA or a PO to facilitate that, to make sure you know what best fits. So just don't wear a slipper out when it's snowing is what I'd say. So pick the correct arsenal that you're going to use and make sure you fire correctly. So cool, brilliant. Has anyone else got any sort of boding points that have come out from your breakout rooms?
Or any interesting discussions you had?
Actually, उस्मान के तरह हम लोग भी है ना टी-शर्ट्स हैजिंग यूज कर रहे हैं, स्मॉल मीडियम एंड लार्ज. उसमें फिर जैसे आपने नंबर्स की बात की है, फिबोनाची सीरीज जो हम यूज कर रहे होते हैं, तो पहले इनको सारे टीम को पहले समझाना पड़ेगा कि भाई ये नंबर्स क्या हैं. फिर इसके अलावा ये बाकी दिस इज फैक्ट एक्चुअली
नहीं है, सही है.
तो फिर उसके बाद फिर समझा के फिर उसके अलावा 2-3 आइटरेशंस के बाद फिर इनको समझ में आता है. तो हम लोग भी उस्मान की तरह मतलब वैसे ही यूज कर रहे हैं. नो डाउट यू आर राइट के नंबर्स आर सेम इन एनी केस. ओके, इट्स सेम इन चाइनीज, इट्स सेम इन इंग्लिश, उर्दू सेम, बट द पॉइंट इज कि एजुकेट करना जरूरी है.
Of course. And what's your name, sorry?
Sorry, you can talk. Yes.
Who's talking, sorry?
My name is Farhan.
Oh, okay, Farhan. Yeah. So I'm sure you've heard the famous saying, Rome wasn't built in a day. And your team won't start estimating in one sprint either, and they'll get things wrong. And that's absolutely fine. I'd encourage them to get things wrong. Actually, we shouldn't be scared of failing, and that fear concept should not be there. So if that does happen, don't worry. If you fail a sprint, I'd say welcome that. And try to correct course for the next time. We can only get better by failing and learning. Remember, success is inevitably the road to failure, because if you just keep having success, what's going to happen is you're going to fail at some point. So embrace that failure and bring it forward and actually talk about it. And you have a ceremony available to your peril, which is a retrospective that you can use to help you aid that. It's great that you guys are doing the small, medium, large stuff. It's fantastic, and I've used it in many companies. Like I said, I've used it at a high level, and when your teams get comfortable, bring it down to story point level. Absolutely. So yeah, no, thank you very much, Farhan. Thank you for that. There are a couple of questions that came out which I really want to get back to as well, and I know we're going to sort of run over, so I don't want to spill over, and it's going to be my iftari time soon, so I've got to go downstairs and cook. So let's just get to the point of some of the questions that you've got, unless anyone else has anything else that's come out from their breakout sessions that they want to discuss.
Sure, I would want to discuss. My name is Ayman Asif.
Hey.
So I would want to discuss that we are currently using Fibonacci series. So जैसे फरहान ने बोला था that at the start it is very difficult to make teams understand कि what does it stand for, 2, 3 or 5, 8. ठीक है, तो starting में we had some difficulty, but you can say उस्मान सईद ने जैसे बताया था कि starting में हमने थोड़ा सा ना teams को थोड़ा educate किया that you can consider कि 1 can stand for कि आप एक skateboard बना रहे हैं, 2 can stand for कि आप bicycle बना रहे हैं, 3 can stand for you're making a car, and 4 can stand for you can making a bus, or you know it goes on then.
Yes.
So starting में थोड़ा exactly. So starting में हमने sorry. So स्टार्टिंग में हमने टीम्स को ऐसे थोड़ी सी एजुकेट किया जिससे थोड़ा सा इनका नॉलेज डेवलप हो गया था. ठीक है, देन व्हाट वी आर डूइंग करंटली कि अब उनको थोड़ी सी सेंस है इस चीज के बारे में कि व्हाट डू दे नंबर स्टैंड फॉर. सो अब हम क्यों करते हैं कि इन आवर स्प्रिंट प्लानिंग मीटिंग हम अपनी यूजर स्टोरीज को टास्क्स में डिवाइड करते हैं. ठीक है, एंड फ्रॉम द पास्ट एक्सपीरियंस उन्होंने अपने सामने एक बेसलाइन स्टोरीज कुछ रखी होती हैं, like small you can say 1 किसको असाइन किया जा सकता है, 2 किसको असाइन किया था हमने पास्ट में, 3 किसको किस तरह की यूजर स्टोरी को असाइन किया था. सो दे हैव सम नॉलेज. सो हम रिलेटिवली कंपेयर करते हैं कि हमारी पास्ट यूजर स्टोरीज को हमने 1 असाइन किया था, उसके मुकाबले में हमारा अमाउंट ऑफ वर्क कितना ज्यादा है, हमारी कॉम्प्लेक्सिटी कितनी ज्यादा है, हमारा रिस्क और अनसर्टेनिटी कितनी ज्यादा है. सो दे कैन कंपेयर एंड फिर वो अपनी हर यूजर स्टोरी को इस तरह साइज कर सकते हैं. So this is what we are. what we are currently using.
That's really, really good. Or I'll actually encourage you to do that actually until you become comfortable. Like I said, there isn't a silver bullet, you know, that you can just say, oh, you know, everyone can do it. It's not as simple and straightforward as that. So what you can do is start setting those sort of benchmarks and say, actually, हमारे हिसाब में one. You can even go to हमारे हिसाब में one here. 1 hour, for example, just to start as a starting base. So you've got an idea, and then once your team becomes, as I say, more conversant and more comfortable, you can start implementing better and more refined techniques. So I think there was a question in that I think Usman asked about what if the team doesn't get with the concept of time, how are we going to make them sort of think about it a little bit differently? And actually, there's nothing wrong in bringing that concept to the forefront because it's such a new thing. It's getting someone, I think I can only give the analogy of if I gave my dad an iPhone and said, okay, you know what, I need you to start sending WhatsApps on this, and he's only ever had a Nokia. I have to do that migration with him. And it's the same with going to story points. You have to migrate that idea across to someone. So it's not as straightforward as, right, everyone's just going to get together, going to get in a room, and everyone's just going to agree a 13 is a 13. When you get that nirvana, I suppose it's like that Babylon of the figure. When you get that, then that is when you know your team is performing. I know there's that sort of project management, storming, forming, norming, performing. And actually, it is kind of a little bit like that, and that's the kind of mindset that you need to take. So don't be too sort of, I suppose, disheartened if it doesn't work straight away. Just take it in your stride, guys. It will, inshallah, fall into place. It just takes time. You need to coach, and that's what you guys are best at doing. You need to go in and start putting those actions into practice. There was another question around when do we do this exercise? And actually this exercise, it can be done throughout the sprint. So when do I do story pointing? And I know a lot of you guys probably do it in planning, or you have a separate ceremony set up as planning poker. But actually you can do this whenever you want. I would encourage you to do this at least once a sprint, if not two. I've worked in teams where they've done it probably once every other day, constantly refining the backlog. And it was done quite a lot with Kanban teams where they are constantly refining, cleaning, putting work in progress limits in. So you can do this exercise whenever you want. And then there's also another question that's come out around, they see it as a waste of time. I get that. I can see the thinking behind it. As a developer, you just want to go in and say, you know what, cut out the crap and let me just do the development. But actually you're not developing on your own anymore, buddy. You are developing with a team. There's everyone else to consider as well. So again, it's a culture, it's a mindset. You need to make sure you are seeing people and helping people. So you need to, again, as seasoned coaches and Scrum Masters, you need to go in and change that. And I think the other question was around mindset. How do you change that mindset? Now, Mohammed can take a horse to water, but you know, you can't make it drink it. And that's all you can do at this point is just keep going, keep persevering, guys. The results will come through. It's just going to take time. You can't, it's nature and nature over nurture. So you've been naturally programmed, pardon the pun, but as a programmer, you just want to sit there and just code. But you're in an environment that is constantly nurturing, constantly developing, constantly evolving. And the only way that we can evolve and nurture is by putting good practices in place. If you don't have rules, you don't have ways of working, and you can see it in politics day in and day out, there is anarchy if it's not managed correctly. So again, you need to put that hat on as a Scrum Master, as a coach, and say, actually, guys, this is the reason that we're doing it. We need to make sure we're observing, we're listening, we're forming, and we're understanding and validating what we're talking about. There's no point doing something until you know why you're doing it. And I think that's the thing you need to think about. So again, you need to get into the depths of the granularity of it. I know we're going to run out of time. So if there's any other questions, guys, ping them in. And if I can't even answer them now, I will do my devil best to get them across to you. by Zishan, and I'll get some answers across to you if I can't answer them in this session. Is there any other questions? I know we've kind of done questions now, but might as well, it's fine. It's quite a fluid presentation, I don't mind. Is there any other question, guys, you have got before I kind of give you your parting gift on coaching, and then we'll jump into the quiz? Is there anything else, guys?
Okay, I have a question.
Who's this?
Can you tell me which type of report you present to management? Is it any type of reports?
Okay. Yeah. No worries. Okay. So there was a question on metrics, and I'm glad you've come back to it. So for me, Scrum metrics are set by the Scrum goal that you set at the start of sprint planning. You set a sprint goal and you go, this is going to be our sprint goal and we're going to achieve X, Y, Z. So let's say we're going to make sure we're going to get this feature out by the end of this sprint. That's one metric. The other metric that you want to look at is the measure of the deliverable. The other metric that I look at is effectiveness. So actually the key performance indicator for me is the Scrum team doing what it needs to do? Is the contribution to the business in terms of return on investment, the time to market, for example, all there? That's one major goal. And my other main key goal as a measurement is that the measure of the Scrum team itself and gauge its health, catch the problems like a team. So look at the team turnover, the attrition, if you've got dissatisfied developers. These are metrics for me as a Scrum Master. I'm not interested in the numbers. I'm not a project manager. I don't care. I want to make sure that my team delivers, they're effective, and it's a good Scrum team. Velocity and all these things, they're a byproduct. Burn down, fantastic, great. Just don't make it the be all and end all. You want to move away from that as much as possible, because if you just keep relying on, oh, we're not going to hit the burn down, we're not going to hit this, we're not going to hit that. Well, actually, you might as well just be a micromanager. So for me, a metric is set your sprint goal, make sure definition of done is met when you should release that after that 2 or 3 week iteration, depending on how your Scrum teams are set up. And then actually measure the deliverable, effectiveness, and the Scrum team. So these are the things that are going to give you metrics. That's how I measure my team. I don't hone in too much on numbers. And if someone wants numbers, then they can come to me. I don't need them going to my team. I'll say, actually, I'm validating on behalf of the team. The product got released. You managed to successfully finish the sprint and all the work was done. They don't really need to worry about all the little niggles that we had, because as a Scrum Master, we take that on and we facilitate that. We get that work done. So just think about that. Velocity is one of the things that are measured. I know it gets measured and you can't run away from it, but actually, what is that showing you week in, week out, week in, week out? Fine, we know we can complete 50 story points as a team. Well, what if one sprint we only take in 40, for example, but the work was so complex that we had to undertake in that 40? Does that mean our sprint's velocity is reduced? Metrically, yes, but delivery-wise, no. We've still delivered to the goal that was set from our product owner. So they're the things that I look at. Have a look at things like the escape defects and the defect density as well. That's another thing. So we can look at, I mean, I could do another talk, Zishan, at one point around sort of metrics that you can take away from a Scrum and how you validate that. I mean, there's so many things that you can do.
Definitely, yeah.
But I don't want to rely on it too much right now, if that's okay. But again, there's so many things that are available in the Atlassian software base which you can use. But don't make it the be all and end all. I think as an Agile practitioner,
there's the mindset of the management and upper management that doesn't matter.
It's hard. It is hard. You do have this archaic layer that are hell-bent on numbers. And then that's when you need a good coach to actually sit there and implement good practices and speak to them and say, actually, you're not looking for a number. What you should be looking for is deliverables, that return on investment. One of the things that is done in SAFe, which I don't really want to talk about too much, is they weigh the shortest job first and look at that value of that story that's being delivered, and is it going to give the biggest business value? And if it does and it delivers, then that's your metric for you. But again, I can send you a couple of things, guys, on metrics if you're interested. I do have a couple of things that I can send across to you, a couple of slides that I've used in the past. So I'll just make a quick note and I'll get that across to you.
That will be great. Thank you.
No problem. No problem at all. Okay. I think my mouse has froze. Right. Just a couple of few things, and just as a parting gift then, guys, what I wanted to do is, obviously I've gone through my style and my ways of working, but actually choose a style that suits you, your company, and the size of the group of your team. So look at the existing knowledge that you've got in the team and then think, how am I going to do this? So when I've done planning poker in the past, I've used different approaches. So I've used coaching with presentations, I've done interactive discussions, I've done sort of non-meeting meetings. That's kind of like almost we all just sat together and thought, oh, I think this is a good idea. And then we've just had an informal chat, see what fulfills your team's goals. So that's something that you can do. Decide how you're going to incorporate things into your session. So we have things that can aid us. We've got planning poker cards, we've got your software itself. You can even use your fingers, you can use your calculators. There's so many things that can be used to approach in terms of when you're doing this activity. And again, think about taking into account the team that you've got. So use a diverse range of learning preferences. So I've got some people in my team at the moment that are dyslexic. They have difficulties in the comparison with numbers. So what we've done is we've started, so we're all home based at the moment because of lockdown. But what we do is we use visual aids as well. So we've got some planning poker cards drawn up with actually items on there, and it's just like we've just put animals on them, and then they know how many are there and they just count them. Because they're dyslexic, they get confused with the numbers. So we've done a couple of things like that. So you need to put your learner preferences first. So these are just a couple of golden nuggets I think you guys can take away. So think about your audience, think about the culture that you've got. I know you guys are in Pakistan, so I don't know what the culture is like there, but if it's anything like the Pakistanis that are here, I'm sure you guys are fascinated with numbers. So I'm sure you'll be using some kind of metric that gives you numbers more than anything else. And just think of a style that suits you. Like I said, something that suits me and the way I deliver a message. If you try to deliver it the way I delivered it, it may come across differently. So think what works for you and your culture and your audience, really. And that's it, really. And I know we've done the questions, and if you guys are more than happy to, I'll share my email with Zishan. He's got it. I'm more than happy for you, Zishan, to share it with the wider guys, and they can email me. I'm also on LinkedIn. If you guys are on LinkedIn, you can send me your questions on LinkedIn as well. And that's it. And I think the final part is Zishan's got something quite snazzy ready for you, I think.
Yes, so thank you very much for a very insightful topic. So just to revalidate our learning and to check the knowledge, there's a small quiz. Maru, can you help us with the quiz?
Yeah, sure. Let me start with, there you go.
So you should be getting a poll on your screens by now. It's a very small 5 questions. So if you can do it quickly, that would be good.
Everyone can take the quiz, right?
I can see it, yes. I think everyone else should be able to see it as well.
So are you guys able to answer? Not able to see? Yeah, so we have one response coming up. So yes. So while they're doing the quiz, Sana, I think this is quite a wide topic, and there's a lot of interest here in Pakistan on story points and estimation. So
okay.
you might need to come back with like a part 2 with some details.
Yeah, like I said, this is just literally not even, it's the tip of the iceberg with story points. There's
Yes.
so much that goes with them. There's so much outcomes, and it's just such a relatable topic to other things because it's around metrics, and then metrics breaks down to how do we convince the team to really focus on it? How do we get that buy-in from the business? There's just so much to it.
Yes, exactly. And in Pakistan, most of us are very new to, like, let's say, agility and agile ways of working and finding the ways to enhance the team's performance. And sometimes teams get really stuck into story points. So for me, if I remember when I was in the UK, you talked about 2010, and that's the time when I was doing some CSM stuff. And the first time I learned about story points, it took me literally 1 year to really understand and grasp what story points are.
It takes ages, Zishan. It was a complete new way of working. You know, I walked into this role as a Scrum Master, like I said, and I was just literally like, huh? Story points? What is this? I was like, what? I was like, what? I was like, I'm fine with hours. I'm fine with hours.
Exactly.
And then as soon as we started doing it, I saw the benefit of it, but I didn't buy into it straight away. It took me months.
Exactly.
Absolutely. I didn't believe in it myself.
But the beauty is, once you get the hang of it, once you understand how story points work, then things get really easy. Like, even for the teams, they feel like they are not threatened in terms of hours and all these things, right?
But like I said, I don't discourage that. If they want to use the hours, they can. But as I say, the team will fail eventually anyway if they just keep doing hours. So I let the teams learn. So one of my when I was at Jaguar Land Rover, I had four and a half teams, because I had a bug working team, so I don't really count that as a team. They just self-manage. And one team didn't want to use story points, and honestly, that was the one team that week in, week out, failed sprints. Every 2 weeks we didn't complete. And these are things that you think, something's going wrong. I wonder what they're not doing that the other team's doing. Story points, hours, right, there we go.
Exactly, yeah. All right, so let's do a quick check. So how we are doing, guys? We have 12 responses so far. So if you can give your responses now, then we can close the poll and have a very quick overview discussion on that, because I think we are just over our time and we just need to wrap up things. Let's see how it goes.
While some other are doing the,
Sorry, couldn't hear you. Please speak loud.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah, you can ask question in the meantime. Sana is here.
Yeah.
Okay. So what do you recommend? How many Scrum Master per team? One Scrum Master per team, or one Scrum Master can have multiple teams? Actually, I'm managing multiple teams, so I think it's difficult for me to manage multiple teams as Scrum Master. What do you say about it?
Let me just flip that. How many kids can a parent have? When is enough, right? You know your capacity, you know your ability, right? So you know what's going to work for you. Now, there is an underlying rule, and it's unsaid, where it's about 2 teams per Scrum Master. A Scrum Master can manage about 2 teams, and then after that they start fizzling out. And this is why they say don't have more than 2 kids. So probably about 2, and then it gets difficult because you're spread so thin. You are literally running from ceremony to ceremony. You can't improve the team, and it becomes tough. If you've got self-managing, self-organizing teams, I was just saying to Zishan, when I was at Jaguar Land Rover, I had 4 teams, but 2 of the teams, they just literally got on with it. I didn't even have to go to the stand-ups. They just got on with it. The stand-up's not for me anyway, it's for them. They just got on with it, and all I needed to do is every so often they'd have a blocker and I'd remove it. So you need to make that call. But if you are early in your journey, go 1, maximum 2. And if you find that 2 is becoming too difficult, you're in the beauty of a position to say, you know what, I can't give my full undivided attention to this team. They're suffering. And then it's up to the business to make a decision. Now, I know there's obviously costs involved in bringing new Scrum Masters into businesses, but you need to be realistic and say, weigh the cost against the benefit. So I think you could do 2, but try not to.
It depends on the kids as well, right? If the kids are a handful.
Yeah. So if you've got twins that are 2 years old, I'd say just be careful. If you've got a 16-year-old and a 1-year-old, you might be able to manage it a little bit better. So
it depends on the experience of the team.
Yeah, make an educated guess. What are your teams? Are they quite new?
No, they're experienced. Actually, they have.
You should be doing 3-4 teams easily then.
Actually, from 1 year to 3 years, maybe.
Yeah, I think 2's okay. 1 to 3 years, 2 is okay.
I'm managing 4 to 5 teams right now.
Oh well, you need to have a serious word with management then. Because 5 teams is difficult for anyone, even as a coach. 5 is very, very hard. You can't do all of these sexy things that that Scrum gives you. You can't do all this wicked stuff. So no, I don't think 5 is a good number, but yeah, don't shoot the messenger. Don't get your client calling me and telling them that I've told you otherwise. But yeah, look at the maturity of your team. If 2 can manage and self-managing is very, very light touch, maybe take on a 3rd, and then assess it. I've never done more than 4 at a Scrum Master level, and at a coaching level, I would definitely not take on more than 4, because I wouldn't be able to give them these kind of sessions that I do with you guys. I do with Scrum Masters day in and day out. I couldn't do it.
Yes, more teams, more communication lines, and it gets really, really difficult. So
and I forget who I've told what, and sometimes I was speaking to one team and they were talking about a ticket. I was like, oh, weren't you doing that? And they're like, no. And I was like, oh, right, okay. So yeah, how are we getting on with the submissions?
Yes, I think we had 13, so maybe we can close. Maruk, we can close the poll and share the results.
Yeah, let's have a look.
Are you sure?
Yeah,
yes,
yeah.
Let's go for it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to end the call.
Yeah.
Share the result. Should I?
Yes, please.
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, what we got?
Hey.
So Sana, for you to see.
Yeah, I'm just looking and
so everyone should be able to see right now the poll results.
yeah, of course. Okay. Right. Okay, cool, guys. So I've got your answers. Yep, the scale one looks good. Got a couple of people that have, I suppose, misunderstood the numbers, but that's okay. That happens. I know it's complicated, especially with the fact that you've got the 20 option as well, so it can be a little bit confusing. So that one's fine. Okay, the team's estimate, it is correct. It must include absolutely everything. I think majority of you got that one right. It is a bit of a tricky one, and I didn't put this tricky quiz together, so I will blame Maruk for trying to throw you guys off a little bit. But yeah, it includes absolutely everything. Okay, which estimation is not good? It's not good. So this is again a bit of a tricky one, but what you don't want to do is shout the numbers out. So if I say, oh, guys, I've got this story, what do you think? You don't want someone going 1, 3, 8, 13, 20. You want to have a joint consensus and everyone shows it at the same time. So shouting the numbers out, you influence one another. And that's the last thing you want to do is influence. You only influence at the point where you've got a consensus and you are influencing sort of organically rather than sort of bringing it about at the forefront.
Yeah, that's quite interesting to see. Shouting number is quite high in terms of that poll.
Must happen in Pakistan quite a lot.
Yeah, like lead software engineers or senior software engineers, they want to have the influence, right?
Yeah, so we need to, again, there's a PowerPoint presentation that I've done on influencers and key influencers in Scrum teams, and that actually isn't one, is the outcome of it. So yeah, why do we use the story points? So let's have a look what you've got for high level estimation in terms of complexity. You've got for measuring teams capacity. So this was again what was multiple choice. I think I didn't give the answers in this order. Was this one of you guys' one, Maruk and Tishan? Did you guys do this one?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So again, it's multiple choice here. Entertain the team. I'm glad no one put that. And yeah,
that's so fun.
yeah, I think it was.
Some might be thinking there's a story going on.
Okay, so I can see why a lot of you would have put sort of the measuring of the team's capacity, but it's actually for the high level estimation in terms of that complexity that you've got. And I think the last one you put in terms of release planning. So we haven't even spoke about release planning in this, guys. So someone wasn't listening. So I'm not sure what's going on there. Okay, and the final question is, what does the Fibonacci sequence actually help us to determine? So there's 2 answers here. I'm liking the fact that it gives a PO an idea what can be realistically delivered. That is correct. nothing, it's just another exercise. Interesting, that is not correct. It is not just another exercise. And yes, it does sort of help prioritize the backlog. It doesn't actually tell you how much work will definitely get delivered. So think about the answer on that. The story points do not dictate how much work will definitely get delivered in a sprint. What it will help you do is help you prioritize, and it gives a PO a realistic idea of what can be delivered in that iteration. There's no guarantee just because you've estimated it, it's definitely going to get delivered in that sprint. So again, these are learnings, these are things that you guys will pick up, but thank you so much for doing that. If you do have any other questions, send them across to me. I'll do my level best to get some answers across to you. Apart from that, I think I am done, guys.
Yes, I think in terms of presentation, we are done, but there are a couple of things Mahrukh would like to mention. So Mahrukh, over to you. If you can, Sana, if you can move to the last slide, that would be good.
Yeah.
Oh, if I can. Yeah, there you go.
So we are going to close this interesting, amazing talk. With that, I would like to tell you guys, there are a few upcoming training sessions, and which leads to the certifications, which are Scrum at Scale certification. Another one which is going to be held in the end of this month, which is IC Agile team facilitation, and in June we have CSM and CSPO certifications aligned. So you guys can sign up for those certifications. So, and for getting all the information and for registration, you guys can search passe.io website or asti.io website, and these are also the links for leading to those pages. So yeah.
Thank you, Mahrukh. So thank you very much. So thank you, Sana, for giving us time. I know we are slightly over, and you are you're fasting as well. So thank you very much for your time.
No
and
problem.
Thank you guys for attending. The participation was really good, and unfortunately, we were not having so much time for the Q&A session. I think we will align a separate session for this. We can go through in details. In the meantime, if you have questions, as Sana mentioned, please send us via WhatsApp or email. We can forward to Sana, and then we can get answers. So we will keep posting stuff online on our channels as well. So have a look on them as well. So thank you very much. Have a blessed Ramadan, guys. Thank you very much.
Yeah, take care, guys. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. No problem. Okay, Allah Hafiz.
Allah Hafiz.
Thank you very much. Allah
You're
Hafiz.
welcome. Allah Hafiz. Allah Hafiz.
Allah Hafiz.